All right, welcome. We'll give it another 60 seconds or so to see if anyone else wants to join. But for those of you who've shown up, welcome. And a little housekeeping just to start. We're going to have a recording of this webinar, and as well as there's handouts attached, copies of the information today, so you can take it with you after today. But let's go ahead and get started. My name is Jonathan Samuel. Let me turn on my camera here so you can see my face. Hi. Zia Credit Union is generous enough to invited us to talk to you about cybersecurity. We really want to focus on some general cybersecurity protections that you should be aware of, but we're really going to focus a lot also on bank fraud and some of the security around keeping your bank information secure. We've seen a lot of hacking and scams going around lately, so we wanted to address it and address as many people in the community as possible. So I always like to start with this this quote at the bottom: "Hackers don't break in, they log in." So many people don't understand that you have a really critical role to play in protecting your own data. And if you can just be aware and be educated, you're probably 70, 80, 90% of the way there to protecting yourself. The very few attacks are perpetrated solely by a hacker with this hoodie in the basement. You're typically an unwitting participant in these attacks, so that's something to bear in mind. Let me see if this advances. Are you seeing that screen? You see the new screen? Yeah. So here's some of the things we're going to talk about. Oh, and I'll add that you can post questions in the chat, and as I see them come up, I'm happy to answer them as we go along. So today we're going to talk about things in the news, some cyber attack trends, some phishing discussions, because phishing is a really common entry point for hacks and scams. Give some other recommendations and open it up to Q&A at the end. So we'll try to get to all this as quick as we can. A few examples that I've seen in the news: banks warn of big increase in online scams. That was from May, so these things on the rise. I saw this on the FTC website, just posted on June 8th, a few days ago. Can your staff spot the 5 most common text message scams? And the #1 scam that they listed was this copycat bank fraud prevention alerts. And it's worth reading this. People get a text supposedly from a bank asking them to call a number ASAP about suspicious activity, reply yes or no. If they reply, they get a call from a phony fraud department claiming they want to help you get their money back. This is the biggest scam. I've got a few examples of this, and we're going to deep dive into what that looks like. And just identifying that can go a long way to protecting yourself. Text scams cost consumers $330 million. And this is one I am having an issue with the audio playing through, so I'm going to kind of dictate it. But this was a really good example of what's going on. A couple tricked into wiring. This is just from April of this year. Nearly $70,000 from Wells Fargo account to scammer. I'm going to play it and I'm going to kind of dictate it. So a bank transfer scam. In February, Mark was tricked into wiring $68,000 of his own money overseas after a large sum of money appeared in his Wells Fargo checking account. He says they wanted $70,000, but they were going to give him $2,000. You can keep $2,000 if you just give us $68,000. So that's the scammers gain access to his account, and they transfer. This is the most common scam, is that they transfer money into from your savings into your own checking. You discover a big checking deposit. The scammers call you and say, "Oh my gosh, somehow you've gotten my money, you need to give me my money back, my $70,000 back, and you can keep 2,000. So there's even a little bit of a incentive for you to participate. But what you don't realize is that you're now transferring your own money out of your account. So that's the really common scam. So being aware of that particular scam is really important. And then there's still ransomware to be concerned with. Cyber attack shuts down Albuquerque schools in the county. This happened last year, so it's right here in our own backyard, these scams and these attacks. So what do hackers want? By and large, you can see this trend since 2016. It's purely financial, and there's all these new and creative ways that they found to get money from unwitting participants. A few definitions: hacking, gaining unauthorized access to data in a system or computer. Social attack, social engineering is when you use deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information. Malware is any piece of software written with the intent of damaging devices. Phishing, I presume most people know what this is, but it's an email that entices users to click on a malicious link or attachment. And pretexting is the new term that you may not be familiar with, and that's the type of attack we're talking about, where they create a false narrative like your bank account needs attention. Pretexting includes some dialogue back and forth, typically over the phone or text, and then they try to get you out of that medium of communication and onto a phone call, try to get remoted into your computer, things like that. So some of the tactics, you can see phishing in 2021 was the biggest. Phishing is not on the decline, but pretexting is on the rise. So they're finding it harder and harder to get through with just email, so they're using a lot of text messaging and some other methods. Malware delivery methods are almost exclusively through email, and there's a really good reason for it. You've got your personal documents. If you're a business, you've got client data. Whatever your crown jewels are for your personal life or your business life, you open this drawbridge every day. You're protecting it with passwords and infrastructure, but email, you let just anybody in, and you have to communicate with family and friends, loved ones, and but other people can gain access that way too. So it's really important to be aware that that a lot of these scams originate via email. And you don't need to do too many. They can send out 1 million emails, and the median click rate is about 3%. So that's still 30,000 emails that people are clicking on. So we're going to teach you today how to not be one of those 30,000 people clicking on these emails. They send the anatomy of one of these attacks is the user receives an email with an infected link or malicious attachment. The attacker uses a fake site or malware to collect your username and password, and then the malware can encrypt your drive in the case of ransomware, or more often, they're trying to steal your username and password. The example that I showed, that little video of the couple that lost $70,000, what most likely happened is that they got a phishing attack. They put in their email address and password. Then on the back end, the attackers were able to use that username and password to then hack into the bank account, do the initial transfer. But it's hard to get the money out. So now you need to have them participate in pushing the money out of the account. It's easy to do a transfer. And so these are my 3 rules of phishing detection, so that you don't get stuck at the beginning of this chain of events happens when you're the victim of a phishing attack. And so if you can identify a phishing attack early, you can avoid it and cut the whole thing off at the base. So these are my 3 rules of phishing detection. If you follow these rules every time you open any email, and you'll see it comes very quickly. The first rule is ask the question, where is this email coming from? Second rule is, where is this email really coming from? And where is this email sending me to? So if you just very quickly think, where's it coming from? Who's it really coming from? And where is it sending me to? You'll be able to identify almost any phishing attack very quickly. Here's some examples, and they come in a few different flavors, so I've kind of organized them by the type. The first one is a password reset or a technology request. This can be a bank request. I get a lot of these that say, keep your password now. So your password's expiring, alert, this one says Office 365. Well, who's it? Here's what it's sending me to. It wants me to click this button, but where it's sending me to is radio-urbana102.com. I don't know, it's pretty small, but when you hover over, you can see who's it coming from. They want you to think it's coming from admin, some kind of administrator account, but who is it really coming from? It's coming from this news at thisiscolossal.com. So it's really important to understand that they can spoof the name, what's called the display name. It's a little bit harder to spoof the actual email it's coming from. And the idea is if they can attack thisiscolossal.com, now they have this launch pad where they can send emails. And now, so who's it coming from? Admin. Okay, passes that first test. Who's it really coming from? It's coming from news at thisiscolossal.com. They're the victim of the first hack, and now you're the second wave. And where is it sending me to? It's actually sending me to a hacked website. So you got to put those pieces together. Here's another one, security info update, upgrade now. Who's it coming from? Email administrator. Well, maybe that's real. Who's it really coming from? It's this ma.sie at iCasons, again, a hacked website. So, and then where's it sending me to? It's sending me to this long, string of information, but it's not Microsoft, it's not, Amazon, it's not a website that I engage with. So my advice when you see something like this is to just delete it. You don't need to report it. You don't need to alert anyone. It's your you're a needle in a haystack. You just need to be educated that you can delete it and move on with your life. Here's another one about from Office 365 allegedly. Who's it coming from? IT desk with the date. Who's it really coming from? Devon at cpofnys.org. Again, a hacked email account. And who's it sending me to? Online.cdk global. It will only ever say Microsoft.com if it's coming from Microsoft. So we know that those are scams. Here's one that says it's coming from a bank, from US Bank. So this is a screenshot from a US Bank customer. Who's it coming from? US Bank. Who's it really coming from? Some hacked Lehigh University email address. Exact same principles apply. Where is it sending me to? It says wants you to reply and do this verification notification. So those are some technology request example. There's one I call the rabbit hole or the known good contact request. This one's a little bit trickier because this one typically comes from somebody you know. They get hacked, so it's going to pass the who's it from and who's it really from. It really is from somebody that you know. But what you see next is this rabbit hole. Now it's coming from Kim, but what they've done is they've attached an email. I click on that email. It's got this attachment. You click on this attachment, it sends you to a website, and this website is GPS fired-my, and they want you to click review document. The reason they're sending you down this rabbit hole is because if they just sent the link to where they wanted to send you to, it would get blocked by spam. So what they do is they nest it in these different attachments. So if you find yourself clicking and clicking and clicking to get to a document from somebody that you know, back out. They've been hacked, and you'd be best to just call and alert them. Here's another example. Michelle Boland, an insurance agent. Is it really coming from Michelle? Yeah, it really is. She's got hacked. Click this view completed document. Now it opens OneDrive. Click on OneDrive and it sends me somewhere else. So that's the rabbit hole. Here's another example of the exact same thing. Tony from Terrapin Investments, the attached email, download attachments, click read now, it just goes on and on and on. And again, they're doing these things because if they just sent you the direct link, they'd get flagged by spam. So that's the rabbit hole. This one's more of a business one. I call it the executive request because it's coming from a boss to you. So if you have a boss, here's one that one of my employees sent me, and it says, Brian, are you available, from Jonathan Sandmead. They spelled my name wrong, but somehow they, on LinkedIn or something, figured out that figured out his cell phone number and tried to get him. Then you have the employee request. If you're a boss or an owner of a company, you may get these requests from your employees saying, I want to update my banking information, but all the same rules apply. Is it really Daniel? No, it's securedpersonalmail.io@gmail.com. So it fails the second test, so we can move on with our lives. Then we have some of these pretexting requests. I call this the call me pretexting request, because there is no link. It really is, it still fails the second test, order confirmation. Really, it's from solomonkcali5@gmail, but you'll notice there's no link on it, because what they really want you to do is make a phone call. And I did a little research, and when they call this phone call, what do? He assisted me to get the cancellation form through AnyDesk app. AnyDesk is a really common remote access application that scammers, typically from overseas, will use to get onto your computer. Anyone says they want to install AnyDesk, that is a scam. He asked me to install AnyDesk app so he can assist me through the process. Started to see my screen, asked me to put in my bank name and go to my bank account. Really, really common. So that's what a pretexting scam will often do. Here's another one with an attached invoice. It's, it fails the second test, but if we did click on it, we would see this invoice. And the invoice doesn't have a link, but you're thinking, well, I didn't order any of this stuff. How do I get out of it? So you call the phone number at the top, same thing. She called regarding an order I never placed as we were talking. Turns out the person does email spam. So same thing. They try to get remoted in, try to get your bank information. Here's another one. Here's one I saw that, again, it was a text version of the same thing. Your US Eagle FCU account has been suspended due to fraud. Please visit this, US Eagle FCUN. That is not the correct website. So it's a hacked scam website, and they want to start this conversation. The last one I call the prize. This is one where someone was pleased to offer a $15,000 grant, and it goes to a bad link. Here's one that I received that actually passed the first and second test. It says it really is coming from Amazon.com, but when you click on view details, it's sending me to channel home sales. It's not really Amazon, so I know it's fake. So those are some things to look out for. Who's it coming from? Who's it really coming from? And where's it sending me to? Where is it sending me to? Often to these fake login sites. You can get these fake banking sites. This one's mausa.ma. Again, typically that is a hacked website, and they're trying to collect your username and password for your bank. Often there'll be fake websites for email. Here's one that looks like Office 365, but it's actually a hacked agealones.com, not office.com, not microsoft.com. So those are the things. Here's a fake Gmail one from pacificrimpizza.com, which is a defunct pizza joint from Hawaii. So just a lot of these fake websites, but all you have to do is look at the top of your screen and look at that, what's called the URL. And if it's not what you think it is, close it up and back out. So there are controls, there are things we can put in place that can help protect us from this. Education is the first thing we can do, but what the actual technology control is that protects you is multi-factor authentication. Most banking websites now, including Zia CU, will allow you to, or I think force you to use a text message to authenticate, and that is good. What's even better, it's not always available, but if you can use an authentication app, that's even a little bit better, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Multi-factor authentication, if you're not aware, it's a mouthful, and really all it's saying is there are really four types of authentication. There's something which is a password. It's just something that it's information that can be transferred. Then there's type 2, which is something you have, which has to have a physical manifestation in the world. And type 3 is something you are. And so once you combine something from type 1 and type 2, or something in type 1 and type 3, or type 2, type 3, anytime you combine more than one of these categories, that's what's called multi-factor authentication. When you have two type ones, which is a password, and then your grandma's favorite color or you're the first car you drove, it's technically not multi-factor authentication. It's just two type one authentication methods. So just something to be aware of, that type of security is not quite as secure as when you get a text message or have a mobile phone code sent to you. So some examples: the early days, you'd have these little key fobs that had codes that transmitted. Now it's really common to have a text message sent to you with a 6-digit code. Maybe some of you are even familiar with authenticator apps where you get the 6-digit codes that refresh and you can have a whole long list of them in one application. We're starting to move towards even more sophisticated where they show maps and challenge codes and things like that. But again, as long as you're using some form of multi-factor, even a text message, it's definitely much better than just a username and a password, especially for your email. And most people use either Office 365, Yahoo, AOL, Gmail. All of those offer for free the ability to enroll in multi-factor, or sometimes called two-step verification. And I highly recommend you do that. Why? Let's go back to that couple that got hacked from the Wells Fargo $70,000 scam. Probably what happened was they did not have multi-factor authentication on their email or their bank account, for that matter. And all they had to do was get that bad email, that phishing email, and once they accidentally went to the fake website and typed in their email and password, or a fake banking website and typed in their email and password, without multi-factor, there's nothing else protecting you. You can give up your username and password with multi-factor, and there's still another wall that's blocking the hackers from gaining access. So really important. Control number 2, I call this established financial protocols. And there's a really important tool involved in this. Most financial attacks could have been stopped with this one high-tech piece of equipment. It is the telephone. But there's an important step. You need to establish a phone number ahead of time, and I'm going to explain why. So this really common attack that we're seeing now, we see this starts with a phone call to a banking customer. I know this is happening, that ZICU is essentially the victim of this because people spoof they do it to US Bank, they do it to Wells Fargo. Every bank has this issue where someone calls you, the customer, and says there's a problem with your bank, there's a password issue or an issue with your account. And we've seen it where they do or sometimes or do not spoof the bank's phone number, so that incoming number, just like in the phishing attack, may not be able to be trusted. The caller explains there's an issue with online banking. They want a remote access to help solve it. The user grants access, logs into online banking website with the caller. The caller takes control of the mouse and quickly transfers the money. That really common scam is to send it from checking to savings and savings to checking and back and forth until you're not clear what's going on, and they say, oops, we've overdrafted too much. We need to use Zelle, we need to use ACH, a wire transfer, some method to get the money out of your account and back into ours, and that's the scam. The caller talks to the bank about retrieving lost funds, but sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. In the case of that Wells Fargo user, there was nothing they could do. They lost $70,000. So establishing financial protocols means you call the bank, don't let the bank call you. If there is an issue, which it is possible that can happen, you hang up and you go to the legitimate phone number that is for that bank. That's the only way to be sure that you're talking to them. Establish the phone number ahead of time. Make sure you're not clicking on a link inside the email that says, oh, this is the phone number, because they can have these sophisticated attacks. And if there is an issue, often it'll be reported via the app as well. So if you use an app, that can be helpful. This is another example. I'm going to show you what this looks like Let me see if there's audio here, but basically this is a screen recording of of a hacker, and he's talking to the user and saying, go ahead and type in your username and password for this bank account. And he's actually typing in stars to sort of pretend that he can't see she doesn't play ball. So then he says, well, then you're not going to get your money back because we've overdrafted. Then he tries to get her to click on a link to a Western Union website and get her money back that way. But this money back 123.weebly.com is a hacked website owned by the hacker themselves. So it's just a whole scam, very similar to what we looked at earlier. So those are a couple of common controls that you can put in place. MFA, absolutely, without question, the most important thing you can do. Second most important is if there's going to be money transfer involved and someone's calling you and trying to get you to log in over the website, just hang up and call back. In fact, the other thing I would say is if you did find yourself in this predicament where you realize you've got the hackers and you've given them access to the computer, I mean, I would shut the computer down. There's nothing that I think in this example that I watched that I was just showing you with the Bank of America example. If you watch the whole clip, she's just fearful about how does she get him off the computer, and so she doesn't hang up, and she doesn't hang up, and she doesn't hang up. Nothing's happened at that point, so you're in much better shape to just yank the computer power out of the wall and just deal with that than to keep working with them to remove their software or whatever. And then you can deal with it later, but you want to hang up the phone, you want to get away from them as quick as possible. There's no fix that they're going to do that's going to be better than just getting them off the phone. The last area I want to talk about is password management. And the reason why this is so important is really because we don't have a lot of control over what happens to passwords on the websites that we visit. Here was an example. This is a year or so ago. 8.4 billion passwords posted in one single dump onto a hacker forum. So what does that mean? Well, it means that websites that you go to, Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, whatever it is, those websites get hacked from time to time. And you can even there's a website called haveibeenpwned.com where you can type in your email address and see how many of these email passwords of yours are out there on the web. When I took this screenshot, there were 7 of my passwords out there on the web. So what does that mean? Well, it means that websites that I visited, and I take this one, for example, Cafe Press. I haven't been there in a long time, but they got breached and my password ended up on a dark web site. So what can I, this is going all the way back to 2020. So what can I do? Can I go to the dark web and clean that off and ask them to pretty please get rid of that password? No, I can't do that. So if they have that password, and my favorite password is my child's first name and my wedding anniversary, and I use that over and over again, or even over and over again with an exclamation point or 2 exclamation points, hackers know those techniques, and so they know my email address, and maybe they go to my bank account, maybe they go to my email and start testing that password. My only protection is to only use that password once, but I have the same problem that everyone has. I go to hundreds, if not thousands, of websites in over a year or two, and so I can't remember all those passwords. So what do we need to do? We need to use a password manager. Password managers, so you're probably familiar with them if you use an iPhone or an Android phone or Chrome, because they're starting to become more built in, and those ones are all perfectly good. Some of our old recommendations were Keeper, LastPass, RoboForm, Sticky Password, McAfee has one. Even the Google account password manager and iCloud keychain. If you're using one and you're happy with it, I wouldn't have any issue with it. If you want to have a little more sophisticated version of that, I'm going to walk you through that. LastPass was a recommendation that we used to make, but they had some hacking issues themselves. No password info was directly leaked, but they mishandled it enough that we're not making that recommendation. But my new recommendation are Bitwarden, Dashlane, and 1Password. Again, if you're using the iCloud password manager and it's working for you, that is perfectly fine if you're using the Google one. The reason why you might want to consider one of these, and I'm going to walk through Bitwarden, which is my favorite one, and it's because those two, Chrome and macOS, are a more closed ecosystem. Bitwarden you can use on your iPhone and at your PC and your Mac and your iPad, and you can really maneuver through your digital life in a more sophisticated way and always be using a new password for every single website you go to. And here's the reasons I like Bitwarden is it's open source. It can be has a free plan. It has family plans that I've got my 11-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter on. And if you're using something like LastPass, you can migrate direct. But here's how it works. You go to bitwarden.com, you click create my free account. You want to make a sophisticated enough master password. You still have to remember that one password. So make sure that you can remember just one password and you never use it anywhere else. When we say sophisticated, in 2022, the stats were if you use numbers, upper and lower, and symbols, and you had an 11-character password, it would take 34 years to crack it. So that's kind of the threshold. And you can tell little stories. There's lots of strategies for that, but you want to use many types of characters and at least 11 characters. So you fill this out, you put in your email address, create this master password, retype it, maybe make a master password hint. The password should be memorable, and then I still recommend multi-factor on this account. Then you add to Chrome, you add the iPad app, you add the iPhone app, the Android app, you put it everywhere, and then it sits there kind of as a layer on top as a plugin to your web browser. And now as you go through your digital life, every single website, you're generating passwords that look like this. Instead of remembering passwords and saying, okay, I got to do my pet's name and my wedding anniversary again with a asterisk instead of an exclamation point. It's too easy. You need to have randomly generated passwords, and a password manager can help you remember those. As you use your iPhone, you can just pull them up there, so you can use them natively to log into things there. And just any app any device you're on, you can use the password manager. So hopefully that all makes sense as to why it's so important. This is a good tool, but again, if you're using iCloud or Google Password Manager, those are perfectly fine too. So in summary, cybercrime, it's after our money and our data. We can stop phishing attacks with these 3 rules. Where is it coming from? Where is it really coming from? Where is it sending me to? And multi-factor authentication protects us if a password is compromised, because it's that extra layer of protection. If a caller wants to get access to banking info, call them back at the right number. And our passwords are out there, so password managers let us use a unique password everywhere. Those are some really powerful but hopefully simple rules to remember. That's really all I've got. What questions do you have? You can post them, or if you want to raise your hand and speak, I can try to unmute you, see if that works. But let me know if you have anything else you want to learn about or have any questions on that. I'll hang out for a couple more minutes and happy to answer any questions. And if not, thank you and have a great evening. I'll give it another 60 seconds here, and then we'll sign off, and you can have the rest of your evening back. Joanne. Can't seem to unmute you, so if you did have a question, you can feel free to type it in the chat. Okay. Well, if there's no questions, then have a great evening. Oh, wait. There's one. Oh, where's the presentation available? You can download it. There's a set of handouts that you can download, but we can also send you a copy in the email. But there's a PDF attachment in the handouts, and you'll also get a copy of the video. And you can email marketing@ziacu.org if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to end the webinar, and have a great evening.